Hello. Now, we all know what discipleship is, so why are you watching this video? But do we really know what discipleship is? This video series will begin a rethinking process for what discipleship is, what it is not, and how effective discipleship can help to build strong, vibrant, and lasting faith. Let me begin by making 3 introductory comments that may provide a bit of motivation. Firstly, let me reinforce that discipleship cannot be taught from a pulpit or in a classroom alone. Discipleship is formed through community and through godly habits, in the practice of mission, and in the context of everyday life. I love this quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, where he said and wrote, "Christianity without discipleship is always Christianity without Christ, and discipleship is about following Christ." And lastly, making whole life missionary disciples is the core vocation of the Christian church. Imagine with me for a moment that you were a great evangelist, that you could fill stadiums with 25,000 people, and God inspired you so much, and through His Spirit, lives were convicted that whenever you gave an appeal for people to follow Jesus, all 25,000 would come to the front and choose to follow Him. And imagine you were such a gifted and strong preacher that you could do this every night of the week, and every night 25,000 people would say, "Yes, I want to follow Jesus." If you did that every day for a week, for a month, for a year, continuously, how long would it take for the whole world to come to know and choose to follow Jesus? 2, 3 years perhaps, every day? 5 years? Actually, the answer is 750 years. So perhaps there is a different way where we should consider how we can be involved in this process of discipleship. So let me ask you this question. Why did God create apple trees? What's its most important purpose? What are apple trees designed to do? Primary importance. Take a moment to discuss that question with your neighbour, and I'll just give you 10 seconds because it's an easy question. Looks good enough to eat. Time is up. Now, I'm sure that someone out there said to you that the most important purpose of an apple tree is to make apples because they're great, and this one looks good enough to eat. Well, actually, that's not the right answer. You see, that is just a strategy that apple trees have towards its greater purpose. Because the greatest purpose that an apple tree is designed to do is to make more apple trees. The seeds in here will make more apple trees. I wonder what our purpose is. Let's revisit a well-known statement from Jesus, one of the last statements He said before He went back to heaven, where He said in what we commonly know as the Great Commission, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you." We know it. Hopefully we live it. We could almost recite it. Now, I used to be a teacher trained. So I love language. I used to teach grammar. And if you look at this sentence, the words of the Great Commission, I wonder if you can pick out the verbs as they appear in that Great Commission, because verbs are the doing words, the action words. And Jesus, before going back to heaven, was on about what is your action here. So there are the first 4 I've listed on the screen. You can see them there. Go and make and teach, baptize and teach. Well, I'm not a Greek scholar, but my friends who are tell me that of those 4 words, which we in our English Bibles see them as verbs, only one of them is actually a verb. I wonder which one it is. Make up your mind and lock it away. Do you think it is the go, as Jesus commanded us? Or is it the make? Or is it the baptize? Or is it the teach? Well, go is not the verb. Go is actually a participle. Look that up in Google at some stage. But it means, in the original, Not a command to go, but as you are going. Mission is not an option. As you are going. Baptize is not the verb. It's assuming that will happen. As you are baptizing, it's a participle. Teaching is not the verb. It's a participle. It's assuming that is what will be happening as you are teaching. The verb in the Great Commission is to make. Make disciples. That's the focus. That's the intention. That's the action word. That's the command, to make disciples. So I wonder how we're going with all that. Well, there are many definitions of what a disciple is. Let me suggest a simple suggestion that a disciple is a lifelong, active follower of Jesus. So based on that definition, how are we going in outworking the Great Commission to make disciples? Well, these are some of the books on my shelves which tell me that we're not doing very well. When you read the titles, Almost Gone, Goodbye Generation, You Lost Me, Almost Christian, Mend the Gap, these and many more all speak about a common pandemic around our world, where people who've grown up to know Jesus or encountered him in homes and churches, when they become older, they walk away not just from the church, but from the Christian faith. Let me give you just a couple of quotes. In the Goodbye Generation, we read, despite all our incredible children's, youth and young adult programs, we haven't been able to stop this mass exodus from our churches. We haven't just lost one generation, we're losing several. In the book Already Gone, we read, students didn't begin doubting in college, they simply departed by college. If you look around in your church today, 2/3 of those who are sitting among us have already left in their hearts. And lastly, from Mend the Gap, if the church is hemorrhaging young people, we have to ask ourselves if it's because we address the issue of discipleship too late. Is the spiritual education we provide for our young people neither consistent enough or rigorous enough to provide them with the means to have a strong and stable, and let me add, robust faith in a time when there are many challenges to the authenticity and relevance of our beliefs? But probably the book and the statistic that has disturbed me the most in recent years is the one from the Christian Research Association in Australia, where Philip Hughes records this disturbing figure where he says more than 50,000 young people a year are leaving the Christian faith and deciding that they have no religion. That's more than 750,000 people through the 10 years between two census figures. Disturbing figures that challenge us about what we're doing and how we're doing what we're doing. Let me add in some research from America, from the Barna Research Foundation, where George says this from his new research on the state of discipleship surveys. He records that 1% of church leaders of today's churches are doing very well at discipling new and young believers. What was it again that Jesus commissioned us to do? He goes on to say the surveys reveal that 60% of church leaders feel that their churches are discipling not too well. His summary is this: one of the implications of the research is for churches to rethink what is working in connecting with today's younger Christians, particularly when it comes to relational and mentoring forms of spiritual discipleship. So let's dig into why are we in this situation as we are at the moment. Imagine you are a brand newly appointed children's pastor at your church, or maybe you're a new parent where God has blessed you with a baby. Both of those scenarios beg an important first question. You go, what do I do in this new job in my church as a parent? What do I do? In my church, I need to run a Sunday program and a midweek club. I need to have take-home sheets. I run a holiday program in the holidays. As a parent, I need to feed this thing and water this thing and change its nappy. What do? We're driven by that. And after the dust settles a bit and a bit of routine, we dig into a bit of a deeper question. We actually say, I wonder, How should I do this job better? How should I be a better children's pastor? How should I be a better parent? Well, I should watch some training videos, go to a conference, read some books. As a parent, join a parent support group, go to a mother of preschoolers group, so I can learn how to do this better. And then after a while, hopefully, but maybe not, we get to the core question of why am I being a children's pastor? Why am I a parent? You see, for too much of our children's ministry, our youth ministry, our parenting strategies, we follow that direction. Driven by the what, we busy our lives with what. We then try and refine that a bit, but often we may miss the important question of why we're doing this. And if we keep following that same trajectory, we'll keep getting the same results. So, following the pattern and example of Jesus, perhaps we need to be countercultural. And let's reverse the current trends. So what would happen if we started with the central why question, and then we work out to eventually shape what it is that we do? And if we can agree that the large part of our why is that we want to help see lifelong active followers of Jesus shaped, then that begs the big and important question, and the one that is the focus of the series: how is the best way of doing that? How do you make lifelong active followers of Jesus? And in your rethinking and in your discussion and your reading, some things will become priorities, will become into focus, and that will shape what you do. We need to be driven from the why towards the what to get a much better result. Since we're talking about apples, let me also talk about this apple. This fruit company has been producing phones for 20 years. And the figures for their models 6, 7, 8 and 10 are that they sold for each model more than 250 million phones. Each. That's a lot of phones. Now, just imagine with me for a moment, what would happen if half of those phones, half of Apple Model 7, were defective, broke down, didn't work? What would Apple do? Well, they would not be happy with the result. So they would do something to fix that. And I believe that they would go back and look at the schematics, the plans. There must be a problem in the plans here that's causing this very bad result. They'd go back to the factories and say, what's in the processing? There must be a fault here somewhere. They're driven by the outcomes to go back and fix what's not working to get a better outcome. I believe that is what would happen. Well, the research and the evidence from across the Western world, from all these books that I've read and the reports and others, and anecdotally from across the developing world, is that we're losing more than 50% of our young people from the Christian faith. Are we happy with that? I know I'm not. Is there something in our design, in our processes of discipleship, that is causing us to produce defective disciples? So that's enough to begin our journey, to stimulate a little bit of rethinking within you. I want to ask you to take some time now to reflect on and respond to what you've heard with those who are watching with you. And can I ask you that in your conversation to come up with your top 5 reasons for the question that is on your screen at the moment. We'll need that for our next episode. And in the next video, I want to focus on 2 aspects. Firstly, are we missing something from our biblical understanding of discipleship? And secondly, what can we learn from history that will help shape a different future? I hope you can join me then.